everybody. Welcome back to the podcast, the project investigation collaboration, the collaboratory podcast between our gracious host, Robert Curtis, founder of the Veritas Project.
Hello.
And myself, investigator Todd Boyer. And welcome to the podcast. This week we're going to be talking about lost civilizations.
Yep.
We'll be covering Atlantis, and we'll even talk about Cahokia Indians, which is one that's
right
here local to us. And we're going to go all over the world here.
Yeah.
Talk about them as many as we can, and get through as many as we can.
Scratch the surface, though, because we're doing like just the most popular.
Yep.
We've got, what
do we got? 1, 2, 3. We got 10.
10. Yeah.
Well, 11, 12 if you count.
Right. The
Cahokia
and
Atlantis. So
Atlanteans.
So I forgot to, we forgot to make sure that ChatGPT got Atlantis on our big list.
Right.
You figured it would add that one.
Yeah, you would think that, yeah.
So I'm cheating. I've got Atlantis here on my phone.
Right. So, oh, well.
So it's not a big deal. We'll cheat a little bit. Okay, so we've got ancient Atlantis here on the phone.
Right.
No, they're not calling. We have the information.
Got them on the line.
Got them on the line.
We're still missing.
Yeah, we're still missing.
We heard you guys got internet.
All right, so Atlantis is a legendary island.
Right.
That was first mentioned by Plato in 360 BCE. Okay. And it was supposed to be an advanced civilization, and it existed around 9,000 years.
Right.
Okay. So, according to what happened to Atlantis, it was destroyed by a catastrophic event and sank.
Yeah.
Okay. So, there's a lot of debates over whether it really existed. Right. Because obviously the whole city has disappeared.
Right.
Right. Because it sank. So some theories suggest volcano, earthquake, or whatever. Yeah. They talk about how it was actually the moral society, descended in this this place. Right. So like the whole thing just kind of the fell into
collapsed and everything.
And then let's see, cultural, a lot of very high culture, because the way culture works and the hierarchy of needs goes is it starts with food and water, and then goes
right,
and then as you get to the top, then you get to art and religion, and then art and that kind of stuff, and leisure is the top of the hierarchy of needs. So it was up at the top of the hierarchy of needs. I mean, they were up into their artistic and all that kind of stuff. So so obviously it's an ongoing mystery about the lost city of Atlantis. And one of the most recent things I've seen was a video I saw. There's a place in northern Africa called the Eye of Africa, and it's in the northwest portion of Africa.
Okay.
And according to the description that Plato gave, it was a ring of water, a ring of land, a ring of water, a ring of land, and then the city, right? Or another water, and then the city. If you look at the Eye of Africa, now they say that whole northern part of Africa that is now desert used to be very fertile area. So if you go by that and you look at the Eye of Africa, it matches to where it would have been land, water, land, water, land. And then,
Wow.
So they theorize that the Eye of Africa may have been where Atlantis was.
Wow, that's
a pretty good one.
Yeah. Well, I know that the reason why Plato went there was because it was like a center of intelligence.
Yeah, cultural center, kind of, yeah.
Advanced culture, so that's why he went there. So, and then it's spoken about in the Homer's, which is the Iliad and the Odyssey. They talk about it in that, and then the only way we know about Atlantis is because of people from that period talked about it. We don't have anything from Atlantis to say this was our stuff,
Right.
So.
And a lot of these cultures are that way too. They just kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
And I've got another one for you that I just saw last night. I'm rabbit holing already. So, this 15 or 16-year-old kid discovered an ancient civilization. He noticed that the ancient civilizations lined up to the stars.
Okay.
And he went through and he's like, there should be another city right here.
Right.
So they ended up lidaring the jungle.
I saw that.
And they found another city where this kid said this city should be because it lined up with the constellations.
Right.
So they found like a whole shitload of buildings.
Right.
And another pyramid.
And
a
roads
step pyramid.
And
and everything.
Stuff. Yeah.
Just because he looked at it and saw, this young kid saw that all these cities lined up with the constellations and there should be one here.
Right.
So how crazy.
That lidar is something else. You know, they can peel away the jungle and see the actual surface of the ground. You know, so they can go through dense jungle and then see,
it cuts through the foliage.
Right, what the ground actually looks like, and then find all of these ancient temples and stuff that people have no idea were there.
A lot of it was, you know, Europeans found these cities, and then they went back. Well, unfortunately, when the Europeans popped in to say hi, they brought cooties, basically.
Yeah, right.
And got all these civilizations sick, right? And then these diseases and stuff wiped these people out because they didn't have any immunity to it.
They didn't know.
So then people went back and thought people were lying because they were gone 200 years later because they were wiped out by sickness.
Right.
So... what if a star disappeared before the city's built? Hey, that is a possibility, Robin. I've always said we could wake up one morning and the sky be completely empty. I mean, it's a theoretical possibility. I mean, the chance of it happening is super duper slim, but there is still a chance.
Yeah.
You know, we could wake up one morning and the only, you know, no stars in the sky. I mean, guess one night. If you wake up in the morning, there's probably no stars anyway.
We can't see them that well anyway.
All right, so let's get into some of these other cultures.
Oh,
Start at the
Hittites.
Hittites, yep.
I know the Hittites because Ray mentions it in Ghostbusters.
Oh, yeah. You're right, he does. So go ahead.
Dominated by Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, and neighboring regions during the Late Bronze Age, known for their military prowess, diplomacy, and use of iron. Sudden collapse around the 12th century BCE, possibly due to invasion by the Sea Peoples. Internal revolts and natural disasters may have also contributed to their downfall. Their capital, Hattusa, was abandoned and forgotten until its rediscovery in the 20th century.
So we are going back and discovering some of these ancient cities.
Right.
So, like we said, with the lidar, you know, there's a whole other ancient city that kid discovered because of that. So, the Olmec civilization, they flourished in present-day Mexico, Gulf Coast region, known for the colossal stone heads, advanced agriculture. You know, they declined around 4th century BCE, possibly due to environmental degradation or social unrest. Influence on later Mesoamerican civilizations like the Mayan and Aztec. That's kind of where they got their stuff from. Their disappearance preceded the rise of other Mesoamerican cultures. So before all these other Aztecs and everything, it's kind of like the way we think of Egypt. You know what I'm saying? Like Egypt got their culture from that pre-civilization.
Right.
And they just, gone. So another one just falls off the grid, you know.
And that's the one where Homer Simpson won that contest and he got to pick the giant head. So then they keep it in their basement. It's like an Easter egg in The Simpsons. Like every so often when they go in the basement, there's this enormous stone head in their basement. But, that's what they're known for, is the gigantic heads. So they'll come across them in the jungle from time to time.
Robin commented on your Hittites. So she's like, that's only the second time I've heard of that.
The ancient Sumerians and Hittites.
Yeah, well, Sumerians are our next one.
They probably disappeared because they were worshiping Gozer.
Yeah. So the Sumerians were actually one of the earliest known civilizations in Mesopotamia, which would be modern-day Iraq.
Yeah.
Okay, so they invented writing, developed advanced mathematics, and created the earliest known legal code, the Code of Ur-Nammu. And they declined around the 4th century BCE due to a combination of factors, just like these other ones. Environment, degradation, warfare, invasion. Yeah. They eventually got absorbed into all the other civilizations. You know, like the Akkadians and the Babylonians, more ancient civilizations, you know.
Right.
Despite the disappearance, the Sumerian contribution profoundly influenced later societies. So,
yeah, they were the ones. They had a cuneiform tablet that had progressions on it, and then the scientists in the I believe it was 1800s, 1700s, figured out that it's numbers, it's numerals.
Really?
Yeah. So they other tablets that they had found in that region turned out to be like shopping lists, and that's why they found these repeating patterns. They didn't know what it was, but then now they found that one, and they were like, "Oh, this was a school tablet teaching kids numbers."
Nice.
So then
That's
they applied
great.
that to these other ones, and then it made sense because it was two papayas, and then it had a thing.
Angie says there is no Bob, only Zool.
That's what Gozer. Gozer the Gozerian.
I am the Keymaster.
Oh, the new Ghostbusters movie came out too.
Oh, yeah. It came out this weekend.
Yeah, it was the day before yesterday.
Yeah, I want to see it. I want to see it.
We're going to see it.
I want to see it.
Give a review. Maybe we can do that. We'll do a
Go out this week and go
review.
see it. Give a movie review on the new Ghostbusters movie.
Yeah.
I did see a bunch of last night on my feed. You know, obviously because we are paranormal, I get a lot of feed from other paranormal groups, and I flip through there and I see their lives, and I just it's just clickbait. It just drives me
100%.
nuts. Just drives me nuts.
There's a guy I follow on there, the Blue Collar Paranormal, and he has thousands of people.
Yeah, watch every night.
Watching him sit there and look at a laser grid for 3 hours. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying this, that's what investigation really is, but I mean, he's getting gifts over and over and over again. I'm like, who is watching
this stuff, right? Yeah.
I watch it for 5 minutes, and I'm like, yeah, I'll back out. See what else is going on, But hey, they're doing it. They're out there doing it, so I can't.
Now, how the hell do you pronounce that one? Teotihuacan? I don't even think I've...
Teotihuacan.
Teotihuacan.
Yeah.
I have heard of that one.
Yeah.
It's just the way it's Teotihuacan.
The Mexican pyramids that I was talking about in the last one. I didn't want to say the Teotihuacan, so I just said the Mexican pyramids. That's who they are. They're the Teotihuacan pyramids are the exact shape of the Giza pyramids.
Right.
But they're a scaled down version of it, but the placement and the mathematics is exactly the same.
So we're tying back into the pyramids finally.
Right.
I mean, which is why we kind of picked this subject this week. So, speaking of, do we have? I don't think we do, but so I don't know if you guys know, but the Egyptians actually have a word for the ancient civilization, and the word actually means the people before.
Yeah. Yeah,
so
the elders or something like that.
Yeah, they basically say in their own language that there was people here before us, kind of a thing. So I mean, that totally goes to the theory of they found the pyramids rather than built a culture around it.
Yeah.
So
they didn't build it; they incorporated it. Yeah.
So I'll let you cover it since you say it.
Teotihuacan flourished in the Valley of Mexico during the Mesoamerican Classic period, and that would be after the Olmecs and the other ones we had talked about earlier. The highly organized urban layout, these are the ones we talked about that had streets. Mm-hmm. They had a highway system, so there was a central road that went in between all of their villages for trade, and it was actually it was actually set up so that there was a fast lane, for carts, because they could see that one lane had cart wear, and then the other part was from foot traffic. So it was actually a highway system that was designated for fast vehicles or slow vehicles. So if you had your hand cart and you were just hoofing it, you stayed over to the right, and then the horse-drawn or ox carts would go on the left and go faster.
That's awesome.
Brilliant people, way ahead of their time. That they had architecture like the pyramid of the sun and the pyramid of the moon, and like we had talked about, it lines up the placement of them lines up perfectly with the Giza pyramids, and they're on the same celestial line of Orion's belt.
Right.
So they match Orion's belt. They match the length of the pyramids in Egypt exactly. Right. So it's, and then now they've discovered that there's probably another one of those sites in China, but we just can't. We can't.
Right.
We're
can't
not allowed to
look.
go there.
Right.
Look, yeah.
And the other crazy thing about those pyramids too is they are acoustically, structured correctly. Like you can stand at the top and talk, or stand at the main platform and talk, and people can hear you in a speaking voice, like
all the way to the other side.
Yeah, way
like
deep into the courtyard,
the
in a speaking voice, just because of the way they're acoustically shaped.
Right. There's actually a warning sign when you go there, like in the tourist parking lot. There's a warning sign that says, "Careful what you say around the pyramids, because everyone can hear you."
That's
so
awesome.
You might be like, "Look at that lady! Look at her butt!" You know, I don't know why she wore them pants, and she'd be like, "What?" Yeah. Like she's like a mile away, and you know because the sound reflects differently in that valley. Yeah. So it tells you in Spanish, it's like, be careful what you say because everyone can hear you. So isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
So the same thing as what we said about the other ones. It was social unrest, invasion, environmental factors. I think they say that it was flooding too, because they had underground aquifers that they would use for water supply, and then when they tapped into the aquifers, they removed the top of it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So they would dig down into the cave and build a well, and then eventually they would need more access, so they would make the wellhead bigger. But what they didn't know is that storms on the coast put pressure on the aquifers, and then it blows water out somewhere, wherever the weak spot is. So you had a well here on an aquifer that rises and falls. Mm-hmm. When a hurricane comes and puts pressure on the coast, and it blows all that water out of your aquifer, and then now
flooded the valley.
You're completely flooded. Whereas before you tapped into the aquifer, it would just flow somewhere else.
Right.
You know, because it was a cave basically. It would just flow to another part and fill up the stream or whatever. But poor guy. Can you imagine that guy? Get up in the middle of the night, you want a drink, and you're like, wow, the water's right there. I'm swimming home, you know.
You got some troublemakers in the chat here saying they would say stuff on purpose while they're out there at the pyramids.
Right. Like, can you believe she's wearing them shoes?
All right, so the Minoan civilization.
Right.
They're from the island of Crete during the Bronze Age. They're known for their advanced architecture, including the Palace of Knossos.
Yeah.
And they worship the pantheon of gods, including the bull god, often depicted in their artwork. They think their disappearance was possibly linked to volcano eruption on the nearby island of Thera, which would be the modern Santorini.
Yeah, Santorini.
And they declined also attributed invasion of
Mycenaeans.
Mycenaeans. Well, there's a lot of letters there that we didn't pronounce. Mycenaeans.
Mycenaeans. Yeah.
And internal conflict, basically the same thing as we're getting with every one of these civilizations. Bottom line is they didn't know. They don't know why these disappeared. Right. They speculate it was these things, and somehow it seems to be all of these things. You know what I mean? Yeah. So they never nail it down. It's a combination. So
because they always cite war, you know, as being one of the reasons why these societies decline, but they don't also think that it was a warring faction from another part of the world that had diseases that these people had never been introduced to. So when, like, let's say when the Germans, the Germania, you know, the Goths back then, the Visigoths, invaded Rome, it wasn't so much that they had overwhelming troops, but they also had diseases that the Romans were never exposed to.
Yeah. So
they brought, you know, all sorts of bacteria and things that came from their culture, and then the Romans just kind of fell apart because they had no way to combat.
Another one that's not even on the list here too is Troy.
Oh yeah.
Like there's no proof of Troy, but there's these stories of Troy that just, the
Trojans were walled off in their little city, all protected, and that's the same exact thing. They were never exposed to all of these bacteria from the coast or from other parts of the world,
Yep.
Because one of the one of the things that they don't talk about, the Chinese, the Huns, when they would invade, they would take the rotting corpses from the battlefield and they would trebuchet them
into the town. Yep.
Into the town that they were under siege. So, you would get a nice surprise in your
living room as it comes through the ceiling, right?
Here's a bloated
Let's not
corpse
talk about it.
splashing into your town, right? So that's one of the things the Huns would love to do. They'd love to do is they would chuck the dead into the city that was under siege.
Angie says she's loving your hat, Bob.
Yeah,
Bob's always styling. I always feel underdressed. Bob's always styling. He's always got the snazzy shirts, and he's got his Disney shoes on again.
My Disney Crocs.
He's got Disney. They're purple. Show them off. Show off the Disney Crocs.
They're dirty, but I got the Haunted Mansion Crocs. This part glows in the dark.
Oh, Bob's always styling. I just put on a nice shirt and some blue jeans and show up.
I'm wearing Crocs because it's my house. So I don't have to wear shoes. I don't. Yeah, it's almost time to switch to the straw hat.
Oh, there you go.
I have a little a straw pork pie hat that I wear in the summertime.
Nice.
These are wool.
Nice
so
and
they're
warm.
Very, very warm. Yeah. So if you wear them in the summertime, you're going to cook your head.
Nice. So, our next one is the Anastasi, which is the ancient Puebloans.
Yeah.
Native American civilization thrived. Four corners of the regions of the United States. They were known for their cliff dwellings, irrigation systems, and pottery. And the sudden abandonment of many settlements around 13th century, they suggest drought, resource depletion, warring neighbors, other tribes,
Yeah.
Descendants of Anastasi include modern Pueblo tribes.
Yeah.
Now, rabbit hole, sorry. You said something a few minutes ago. You were talking about the warring and all the people and all that kind of... And that made me think of Attila the Hun.
Yeah.
Attila the Hun sired so many children that, it's like 1 in every 5 people today have Attila the Hun DNA or something like that.
Wow.
He had so many children.
Wow.
And now it's had enough time to move.
Right.
And spread throughout. 1 in every 5 people in the world have Attila the Hun DNA. Or something like that. It's really an absurd number. It really is. Yeah, we should
That's
talk
crazy.
about that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
the Pueblos, they have that thing they call Chato culture out there, and that it's like a site they excavated by the cliff dwellings. It's actually the first mall.
Really?
Yeah. So all of the people from the neighboring tribes would go to the Chato culture, and they would set up their little booths or their carts or whatever, and it was actually a strip mall.
Nice.
In antiquity. So you could buy arrows, you could buy animal pelts, you could buy grain, you could buy in one location. It was the first in the whole world. It was the first place
mall.
where
That's awesome.
people came. Yeah.
That is awesome. So let's go to the bottom one, then we'll come back up.
Okay.
So the Etruscan civilization.
Yeah.
And these were ancient Italy.
Yeah.
Okay. And they were pre-Rome.
Right.
And they were known for elaborate tombs, bronze works, and they were a lot of influence on the Roman culture.
Yeah.
And, they just disappeared around the 1st century BCE. They just poof, gone. Due to assimilation into the Roman society.
Right. The Romans just absorbed it.
So, how Rome was back then. They just kind of took over everything. Their language is mostly undeciphered.
Right.
They can't figure it out. And we have a very limited understanding of their culture because they were sucked into the Roman Empire.
Into Rome.
So their culture just kind of disappeared along with everything else. So
the reason why the Romans wanted the Etruscans, I remember, is because they had a way of casting bronze blades. And the mixture of bronze that they used was really dense, so that it would hold an edge really well.
Right.
So, because like bronze
is a soft metal.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you try to make a knife or a sword out of soft bronze, it's just going to bend or get a chip in it.
Yeah.
If you're trying to cut a person, it would work, but if you hit another sword or you hit a shield with it, it'll bend. So the Etruscans developed a way of hybridizing the bronze that they used, so that it was more dense than other people. That's why the Romans were like, we want that.
Right. So then, our second to last one is the Mayan civilization.
Yeah.
Okay, so they flourished up, in present-day Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, El Salvador. I mean, their reach was widespread. They reached remarkable achievements in astronomy, mathematics, architecture, which is a lot where the pyramids,
Right.
got their good architecture from. But their sudden collapse of many of the cities around 9th century CE,
Just disappeared.
Just disappeared.
Just
Same
like the
thing.
Cahokians.
Just vanished, just like the Cahokians of that time period.
Right.
So, there are some cities that continue to habit Mayan culture persists today because,
Right.
this is where we're talking about all the tours and you go to the Mayan, pyramids and all that kind of stuff. And so, Lost Colony in Roanoke. I'm not sure about that one.
They were English, right? And then they were driven off of their land into the interior, and they came for a resupply one year, and then there was nobody there. So they found stone tablets that had Native American writing on it, and there was also English on the tablet. So they think one of the women from Roanoke was driven into the interior, and then she was absorbed into a part of the Indian culture.
So then let's talk about our local one.
Yeah, the
Cahokia
Cahokia
Indians.
right? Which is why the Mayans ties into that, because it's the same. There's artifacts from the Mayans, their Mayan beadwork that was found in Cahokia,
Which is right here by us,
Right.
in the middle of America.
in Illinois.
Right.
So they know that the Cahokians were trading with traders who had access to Mexico, at least, because there's shells and beadwork from the Mayans.
And if you go back on YouTube, our 4th podcast, we actually went out to the Cahokia Mounds.
Right.
And we did our podcast from there, and there's a lot of good information there. And there was, what was it? It was like an absurd amount of shells found.
Yeah.
Like shell beads, just an absolutely absurd,
Yeah, one of the chieftains had a cloak that was completely adorned in seashell beads.
So yeah, they don't know how all these beads got there, and it was another situation where they just disappeared.
Yeah,
it was a very, very large culture.
Yeah.
Like we walked a lot of that, what would have been the city back then.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, up until what was it, the 80s? Like there was houses on the
they
site.
built a neighborhood.
Like there was a neighborhood. The mounds were in people's backyard.
Yeah.
And then so I mean it's crazy. So if you go to that 4th podcast and check it out, we go out there. We got pictures. We got video and everything from out there. And it's literally a lost civilization here in America.
In the middle of America. Nobody ever goes there to visit.
Yep.
And it's one of the saddest things because it's really cool. They have an augmented reality walking tour that you can take on your phone, and you can go around and it'll show you like where the mounds used to be, and it talks about their religion, the orb spider, religion, and it's fascinating to think that. And the weird thing about the Mayans and the Cahokians is that they didn't decline, right?
They just vanished.
Poof, gone. There's no burial pit to account for all of the people that live there.
Robin was asking if we took any equipment with us. No, we didn't.
No.
We were new in the podcast and just trying to get the information out there.
Yeah. We should probably revisit that.
Yeah, we should.
Once it gets a little warmer and we can go out there and actually use more of our...
And not a windy day.
Yeah.
The last time we went out there, it was such a windy day.
Yeah.
That we came back and we realized that
the footage,
the audio was trash, like on everything. So we went out. When did we go out again? I can't remember if it was the next day or.
We bought the
little fuzzies.
Little fuzzies for my camera. That's where they came from, is because it was so bad that day. The new camera has its own little dead cat cover on it. So
nice. So, but yeah, we'll have to go out there again and
we can get in the museum.
Check it. Robin says she's never heard of the Cahokia Indians before.
It's crazy that. People who
look
aren't
it up.
From here have never heard of it.
It's literally now so the property that we investigated. How far is that from the Cahokia
Oh,
I mean, it's close.
Maybe a mile.
Yeah.
Maybe. Because
So,
it's the swamp. There's a swamp, and then there's the interstate, and then there's a tiny farmland, and that's where the house is. So it's maybe a mile from the walking trail that we took.
okay, so the house we investigated the other week at Bob's family home
Yeah.
is less than a mile, or mile-ish,
Right.
from the Cahokia Mounds territory
Right.
there, the city of the
Yeah.
Cahokia Indians. So, Cahokia. Just look up the Cahokia Indians, Cahokia.
Yeah. And it's between State Park Place, Fairmont City, and Caseyville. That is the area that you're looking for.
Yeah, it's crazy that it's a civilization here in America that just disappeared and nobody knows. And they used to take the dirt from the mounds.
Yeah.
They would just come and
fill in
like
holes and stuff.
They didn't think anything about it. And then somebody said, "Wait a freaking minute! This is like
something,
a historic. This
right,
is something
This is historic." Yeah. And then the farmer actually built his house on the first step of the mound of the big
of the
mound.
pyramid. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
There
big
was a
pyramid.
home that was built right there, and he actually tore out part of the mound and
To
put
put
a
a driveway.
driveway going up to his house.
Yeah.
When I was little, the driveway was still there.
Right.
And you can see where the footprint of the house. You can still see it today, but it's been graded
Right, it's
over.
graded over,
But you
flattened.
can see where the foundation blocks of his house were, and then the gravel of the driveway was still there when I was
Right.
little.
Yeah, if you go back to my first TikToks are actually at Cahokia Mounds.
Yeah.
I did my first TikToks from there, and then, like I said, if you go check out the 4th podcast, it's all about the Cahokia Mounds and everything. So if you want to check that out, Robin,
Yeah.
please do.
It's
We encourage
crazy.
it. It's
The whole story is, and there's so many opinions about what happened, and they don't hold any water.
right.
Right, because they always say, well, disease befell them because of the trade with
Right.
the English that came through, or the French at that time, and the timelines don't match. Like
Right.
it was way before America was discovered that they disappeared, and there's tribes just to the north and just to the south, and they don't share any DNA.
But
with
there
the
is
Cahokia.
shared DNA in Mexico.
Right.
So whether they came, the traders came up and made families or whatever happened to civilization, some of them took their trade route south,
Right.
and went south. There's no, you
But
don't know.
Who would, in the middle of
So-
Illinois, pack up, 10,000 people and
Right.
just walk to Mexico?
Yeah.
So
So-
how would that even
The
be
spaceship
possible?
showed up and picked everybody up.
That's my theory.
Really?
That's my theory, and it's very it's one of those fringe theories. But I think that the Mayans and the Cahokians were onto something, and
Right.
and a visitor came and was like, "These are the most advanced people on the planet." The Pumapunku Peruvians, the Mayans, and the Cahokians, and was like, "Hey, you guys want to come with us? We'll,
Right.
absorb. We'll take you into our, whatever the UFO
Right.
people did. Right? They just took them away and left all their junk behind, because that's the only theory that makes any sense. Because if they were killed by disease, there would be burial pits, or there would be some sort of
Right.
thing. And when the first settlers came through Cahokia, there was still grain baskets that
Right.
had rotten, the
Rotten
remnants
grain
of
and stuff.
grain.
Like, literally, like you see in the horror movies where, like, they get up and there's still food on the table and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
It literally is that kind of
Yeah.
situation.
There was still the chimenea, like, in their house still had wood in it, and there were still, like, pokers where they were cooking food.
Right.
And there were still, like, plates and stuff, like, out for people to be making food.
Right.
Like-
yeah. Like, literally just
They just disappeared.
disappeared. So,
There was clothes hanging up on the walls. It was
Yeah.
exactly like hundreds of years later, when the first settlers moved into that the village was still like that. The fences and everything was falling in from termites and
Right.
stuff, and the houses were knocked down and everything from hundreds of years of rains and tornadoes and stuff.
Right.
But the town was still intact. Like,
Right.
people were still living there.
right. So if you come to St. Louis, it's actually about 7 minutes outside of downtown St. Louis.
Yeah.
Totally worth the trip. The visitor center is closed on Sunday. So
Right.
don't go on Sunday. But any of the rest of the week, the visitor center is open. Come check it out. Like I said, check out that 4th podcast. We do have a lot of good video and pictures and stuff from that. I mean, our podcast was still young. It wasn't the most amazing video we ever produced. But it's definitely worth a check out. And don't mistake Trash Mountain for it.
Yeah. That's another funny story, because being from the area, when I was a little kid, they took this swampland that is northwest of the Cahokia Mounds area, and it was a big, deep swamp, and they started filling it with trash. And then they built this barrier of poles with the fence on it, and to keep the trash from blowing up on the highway. Over the years, it's built up and built up and built up that it's actually bigger than the Cahokia Mounds is right now. So a lot of people, when I say, hey, go visit the mounds, they get off at that gas station because they think that the Trash Mountain is the Cahokia Mounds. But it's actually just a garbage dump that's been filled in for probably 50 years now. And the Cahokia Mounds is actually smaller and further down the highway. So don't get off the highway when you see the big dirt mound coming from St. Louis, because that is not the Cahokia Mounds. That's actually a trash pit. The Cahokia Mounds is a little further down and on the other side of the highway.
The typical St. Louis, right?
Right,
Trash.
typical.
Well, we want to thank you guys for joining us again for another podcast. Where we covered ancient civilizations. And make sure you check us out on all the other social medias. Is there anything else that you could think of that you want to add? Any rabbit hole you want to go down before we wrap this thing up?
This is one of those ones that, it could be like the entry point for a lot of crazy. This is another one that we dip our toe into. Like last week, we're just dipping our toe into it. Go out there and find the truth yourself. A lot of reading, a lot of information is out there. But once again, all the social medias, R.S. Curtis, we're the Veritas Project for Bob. Mine's all Investigator Todd. Once again, we thank you for joining us. We are on YouTube. If you can't find us real easily on YouTube, type in Project Investigation Collaboration. We're on Spotify. What's the new one? I keep forgetting. Odyssey. We're on Odyssey. So everything we have on YouTube is now on Odyssey. And tell them what you told me this morning about Odyssey. Oh, the cool thing about Odyssey is they have their own cryptocurrency that they trade in. So you can, instead of like using your PayPal or whatever to gift creators, you can buy into their cryptocurrency, and then it's always going up in value. So like I made like 15 whatever their space bucks are, for setting up the whole channel and having like 30 videos to just dump on it. They gave me like 16, and it's already up to like 30 or 60 something.
Tell them where you found our podcast, though.
Oh, yeah. The best part of it is, how on YouTube we get smashed by the algorithm because of Project Veritas, right? So the first time that I had everything uploaded and I went to the page before you log in and it shows you the landing page, we were on the top 5 of the spooky,
the landing page, the spooky page.
Yeah. So we were already in the top results of, and I was like, holy shit, we made it. Because it's so bad on YouTube, we get so smashed down by the algorithm because of the Project Veritas people that on Odyssey their footprint is a lot smaller, so we compete on an equal footing. So in the spooky section of the podcast, we were there, number 5 on there already.
So that's a start. And we've only been on there 2 weeks, two weeks, something like that. So we're taking off. I don't know. I mentioned mine's all Investigator Todd. I don't remember, but anyway. Yep. Now you know, guys. We're my brain stopped raining. Like 30 seconds left in the podcast, my brain stops raining. So I want to thank you guys again for joining us for the Ancient Civilizations. And I think we're next week, thanks to KT, next week we're going to cover Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So join us next week for Bermuda Triangle. And once again, thank you. Go ahead and subscribe. Pass us along to anybody who you think would enjoy our podcast. And remember,
stay curious
and find the truth. And we'll catch you guys next time on the next podcast. Have a good day, guys.